Queensland artist David Usher is holding a large exhibition of his works, his abstract landscape paintings, later this year down in Brisbane. But from tomorrow in Toowoomba, a prelude to that, a taster of that exhibition, if you like, will be hanging on the walls of a, well, I guess when it comes to art exhibitions, a fairly unusual venue here in Toowoomba. It'll be hanging on the walls of Peter Snow and Co. Real Estate in Margaret Street. That exhibition is called The Afternoon Mile. So many questions. Let's find out. Toowoomba artist David Usher joins me now. David, good morning and welcome.
Morning, David. Thank you for having me.
David, thank you so much for your time. Did you ever think that your works would be hanging on the walls of a real estate office?
I think I've got a few works on a few real estate offices, but it's actually the old Kumquat shop space, which is in the Peter Snow building.
I see. Okay, fair enough. So this is the I guess out of the box thinking though is the idea of sort of devoting any space, I guess, to help promote, in this case, a local artist. Tell me how this came about.
Well, it was through Alexandra Lawson, who's my dealer in Toowoomba and, well, in Australia. And she organised it with Peter Snow's real estate agency because they had a shop front that was being renovated. So it was vacant for a month or two from July. So the show opens tomorrow until August the 9th. And I think they're renovating shortly after that. So yes, it was a good opportunity to use an empty space, and they very kindly offered it to the gallery. So.
That's brilliant. How hard is it though to turn, and this is where I guess it turns what our view of an art gallery and any venue for an art exhibition, it turns that any view we might have of what that should look like turns on its head. I mean, is it hard to take what I would imagine was pretty much a standard empty shop space and turn that into what you would call an art gallery, albeit temporarily? Was that challenging?
I think it probably would be in a lot of spaces, but not in this one. The ceilings are nice and high. It has some beautiful windows. It's probably a Georgian-style building that they're going to renovate. So the actual building's, quite a beautiful building. So that certainly made it easier. And the windows at the front are very large, which also helps to view the space. And it has good natural light, which is also helpful.
It sounds like it's perfect.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Afternoon Mile. What will we see?
So these are paintings that I've done in the last couple of months, and I was stuck at home, working from home for a little while, probably a couple of months when everyone else was, and I realised how important it was to me to get out of the house, and I do a lot of work on plein air, so I go out and paint at different properties, friends' places and families' places, and I had just missed that. So these paintings represent being sort of let out again, I suppose, to paint in the environment. And mostly Western Queensland.
And so how far afield are we talking about? Do you cover, not just, obviously, Toowoomba and surrounds, but the paintings, how far afield of landscapes will we see?
Well, these ones, I have family in Western Queensland, so they're west of St George, between St George and Mitchell. So along the Maranoa. So a lot of these paintings would probably have germinated there. The original ideas sort of come from that region because it's very familiar to me. But I've travelled across Australia painting, and it always amazes me the light in different parts of Australia always seems to be different. Yeah.
It's interesting that, because I wanted to ask you, is the light the key thing? What is it about a certain scene that you'll be walking or perhaps driving in a car or just exploring, one of these properties that you've been allowed to paint on? What is it that catches your eye and makes you say, that's the scene that I want to capture? You either remember it or, at the time you get out and start painting. What are the prerequisites?
Yeah, I think the light is critical. I think, as you know, the afternoon light is can be spectacular, particularly in Toowoomba. But the morning light is also beautiful. The midday light is probably harder to represent in terms of abstracting a landscape from that sort of light. It's very harsh. But the composition is also important. So most of the places that I paint or interest me are sort of forgotten spaces, which don't particularly have anything grand about them, but they certainly have something appealing to me in terms of their composition. But the light is critical to that, yeah.
So in the case of these works, you're talking about landscapes or scenes that you've remembered, like you were going back to them when you started to paint these works. Do you take a photograph, or are you relying really on your memory of the scene, or do you prefer to paint on the spot? What's your preference?
It's a combination of the three. Luckily, I have a brother who's a fantastic photographer, so I do use images that he's taken, but it's a combination of painting on plein air or on the site, and then travelling. A lot of the images that I paint are from that experience of travelling down the highway, and you're sort of catching the landscape in your peripheral. So those things, I think over years and years and years, they just soak into you, particularly if you're travelling through similar landscapes that you've travelled through before. And I guess you absorb them into your memory. And then for me, it's a combination of bringing the studies that I've done home to the studio, and then putting them in the space and looking at them in the space, but sort of almost seeing the studies in the peripheral. So, yeah, it's a combination.
Is it fairly rare, though, for you to actually paint on the spot? I suppose it's not entirely practical in most cases, is it?
No, but it's not rare. It's a key part of what I do. And sometimes those works are finished on the spot, but often they're just the trigger or the idea of something that I then explore a bit further. So the way I work is it's not a literal translation of the landscape, it's an abstraction of it, yeah.
Well, that was my next question, because, I think, look, I'm no art expert, but I often wonder whether people see your paintings, you describe them as abstract, and as you said, you're not trying to depict, almost sort of photographically, in painting in artistic form exactly what the landscape looked like. Do people often sort of ask you about that? Why didn't you just paint exactly what it is there? Or do people just sort of embrace your work for what it is?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. People seem to embrace them. I've never really thought to. Occasionally you get someone asking, "Where is this?"
Yep.
But I guess I'm trying to capture the emotion of the landscape more than anything. So it's not. Yeah, it's obviously when you look at my work, you can sort of see that it's definitely landscape painting, but I'm extracting something from the memory of the landscape, I think. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And to convey emotion on canvas is an intangible, isn't it, really? It would be quite challenging, I would imagine.
Oh, look, I think for every artist it's different, Just for artists painting the literal landscape, and there's plenty of those doing that beautifully, I think that's their thing, that's the thing that motivates them. So I think for artists, it's sort of almost out of your control. You're drawn to something and you're responding or painting it. But the reason you're approaching it from a certain perspective is very difficult to define, I think. Yeah.
So our chance to see this sort of taster exhibition, if you like, of what is coming up in Brisbane later this year, but the exhibition is called the Afternoon Mile in Margaret Street. So how long will it be? How long do people have a chance to go down and have a look?
So you can only see the show through the window or by appointment, and it opens tomorrow, Friday the 31st of July, and runs till Sunday, the August the 9th. But you can contact, the contact is Alexandra Lawson Gallery for inquiries. Certainly walking past, you'll be able to see most of the show through the big front window.
But if you want to have a closer look, you
just have to call Ali. I can give you that number if you like.
Yeah, look, if you're happy to put it out over the air, and if people have missed it, they can give us a call. Fire away.
So Alexandra Lawson Gallery, 0418 603695.
All right. Excellent. And that's from tomorrow morning. We'd encourage people to have a stroll past. As David said, you can see the majority of it through the window, and certainly adds something to your strolls through Margaret Street throughout the day over the next few months. David, a pleasure to have a chat to you this morning. I appreciate you getting up early for us. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, David.
Thank you. Great to chat. David Usher there. If you missed those details, give us a call, 1300 747 222, and we'll pass them on.